January 2026, Iron Man comic fans finally have hope. DC Comics stalwart Josh Williamson is coming to Marvel Comics to save Tony. In 2008, Robert Downey Jr. made Iron Man a household name. How did Marvel Comics capitalize on this newfound popularity? They spent 20 years shitting all over him. A plot twist so insanely stupid, only modern comic book writers could think of it. Names like Taylor, Bendis, Fraction, and Gillen all took their shots to tear down Tony. They turned Marvel's genius hero into a fascist tech bro villain with no intentions of ever rebuilding his legacy. Josh Williamson has a monumental task ahead of him. It could take years making Iron Man comic books cool again. If you think I'm exaggerating, let me show you just how bad it got. But first, let's talk about the 616 Comics, the best shop for exclusive covers and ratio variants. Hit up the 616.com or their app. There's an exclusive discount in the video description. All right, back to the greatest act of self-sabotage in the history of modern comics. Civil War dropped in 2006. Mark Millar and Steve McNiven gave us one of the most ambitious superhero stories ever told. A genuine moral dilemma. Government accountability versus personal freedom. Captain America versus Iron Man. Marvel EIC Joe Quesada wanted an event with heroes fighting heroes, and Tony drew the short end of the stick. Iron Man became what Miller called a practical authoritarian, someone willing to sacrifice liberty for order because he genuinely believed it would save lives. The Superhuman Registration Act, government-sponsored teams, surveillance infrastructure. Was it right? No. Was it understandable? Kinda, sorta. But that's what made it compelling. Stark ends up detaining unregistered heroes in Prison 42, manipulates Spider-Man into revealing his secret identity, only to turn on Peter the minute he grew a conscience? But Miller wrote Tony as a fallen hero. This was supposed to be his lowest point. It wasn't supposed to be a full-on heel turn. That's how character arcs work, right? Except they just kept breaking him. Brian Michael Bendis' Illuminati, Tony's secret cabal with Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, Namor, Black Bolt, and Charles Xavier cemented him as the go-to fascist. In Planet Hulk, they exile Bruce Banner, one of Stark's best friends, into space. Hulk comes back pissed and ready for revenge in World War Hulk, effectively cementing Iron Man as a power-mad douchebag. Now must be the time to correct course. Editorial said, nah, fuck that. Let's go bigger. Dark Reign, Superior Iron Man, Civil War II. Bendis, Tom Taylor, and Matt Fraction attacked Iron Man with a clear agenda. Turn Tony into an authoritarian who constantly suffers the consequences but never earns redemption. Even when he's doing the right thing, they make him the villain. In Civil War II, Stark opposes Carol Danvers and her prosecution of pre-crime. So what does he do? Kidnaps Ulysses Kane, a teenage Inhuman. His big hero moment is literally a felony that results in heroes killing heroes again. The story ends with Tony beaten into a coma by Captain Marvel and replaced by a 15-year-old girl. Write that down. It's going to be important. By this point, we're not even pretending there's a redemption arc coming. Here's what drives me crazy. Miller gave them the template. A hero falls, a hero suffers, a hero rebuilds, a better hero rises. They kept the first two parts and forgot everything else for 2 decades straight. Hell, even Darth Vader, literal space fascist who blew up planets, was allowed redemption eventually. But Tony is too rich, too white, too straight, and too male for that. He must suffer forever. Miller's event kicked off Tony's fall, and Marvel's been happy to let him rot ever since. But Iron Man's transformation into Marvel's ultimate fascist is just the start. Modern Tony can't resist turning every gadget into a weapon. Damn the consequences. For decades, Iron Man was built on stories about the hidden dangers of innovation. What happens when your technology falls into the wrong hands? How do you balance progress with ethics? David Michelinie's Armor Wars nailed this perfectly. Stark discovers his tech has been weaponized. His fight to reclaim it cost him friendships, government relationships, his company. Warren Ellis's Extremis pushed it to the next level. He merges his biology with his armor, becoming a living weapon. Where does the man end and the machine begin? It's a fascinating question that's more relevant today than ever. These were interesting stories with purpose. Then the publisher ditched them and doubled down on turning Tony and technology into pure evil. Enter Kieran Gillen's The Secret Origin of Tony Stark in 2013. He isn't Howard and Maria Stark's biological son. His brother Arno was supposed to be the family genius, reducing Iron Man's origin from a story of human willpower to one of cosmic manipulation. Then Tom Taylor's Superior Iron Man crushes what's left. The character spirals into arrogance, narcissism, and greed like never before, crowning himself a Silicon Valley demigod while hooking San Francisco on Extremis 3.0, an app promising physical perfection, free trial for a day, then $99.99 daily. Sparked riots and crime as Extremis junkies scrambled for their fix. When Daredevil called out his bullshit, Stark retaliated by forcing Extremis 3.0 on Matt, restoring his sight only to take it back when he resisted. I could honestly do an entire hour about what an enormous pile of shit Superior Iron Man is. Stan Lee created Tony Stark to prove that even a rich weapons maker could have heart, conscience, and heroism, and he proved it could be done. Who's the last writer who actually wanted you to root for Iron Man? When your entire editorial staff treats wealth, ambition, and technological progress as inherently evil, Iron Man can't be a hero, just a whipping boy in expensive armor. Turning Tony into a fascist, unethical genius wasn't enough. If wealth and innovation made him irredeemable, how could he be trusted, even by his friends? Tony Stark's superpower isn't the armor, it's his mind. He operates on an intellectual level most people can't even comprehend. Personal relationships keep him grounded outside the suit. Rhodey, Pepper, the Avengers, they're essential to a great Iron Man story, and he betrayed most of them during Civil War. Editorial had two options. Let him make amends and rebuild those bonds, or leave them broken forever. I'll give you one guess which path they took. Let's start with James Rhodes, his oldest friend, the man who has bailed him out of more disasters than he can count, only for them to be torn apart during the First Hero War. Then came Civil War II, another mess Tony ignited. Rhodey dies in the opening battle, killed by a friendly fire incident in a fight neither of them wanted. And Marvel never let Stark grieve the loss of his best friend. No redemption arc honoring Rhodey's memory, just another casualty piled onto his conscience. That's the pattern. Everyone Tony loves either dies, leaves, or ends up hating him. Pepper Potts, his most loyal friend, sure as hell didn't escape this mandate. In Superior Iron Man, she's forced to stand against him because he genuinely becomes the most sociopathic version of himself imaginable. The woman who helped him through alcoholism, near death, and corporate collapse has to admit he's beyond saving. And they've never allowed them to resolve their issues. Pepper moved on to resilient technologies, and they've remained estranged to this day. And if old relationships can't heal, they make damn sure new ones condemn him from the very start. Enter stage left, Hellcat. Christopher Cantwell's 2020 Iron Man run pretended to give Stark a fresh start. Patsy Walker was supposed to be his new love interest. Instead, she was just there to tell readers how terrible he is. After Iron Man nearly dies saving a city, Patsy scolds him over his white privilege. Hellcat was editorial's mouthpiece to prove that Tony Stark is too self-absorbed, too damaged, too unworthy of real friendship. Marvel Comics needs to keep Tony Stark broken, because if he heals, if Stark earns back trust, rebuilds bonds, proves wealth doesn't make you a monster, then their entire thesis collapses. A redeemed billionaire can't represent everything they hate about America. And if you thought they were done hollowing out Iron Man, you haven't been paying attention. They still had one more card to play, Tony's personal demons. During Marvel's creative apex, David Michelinie and Bob Layton gave us the gold standard of superhero addiction stories, Demon in a Bottle. The alcoholism arc was an unflinchingly honest portrayal. Tony's eventual redemption felt earned. It was the seminal Iron Man moment, and they have been chasing that story's legacy and accolades ever since. But what were the chances they'd learn the right lessons? Zero. They didn't learn addiction stories require nuance and character growth. No, they learned rich white man must stay an addict. After Civil War, Stark becomes riddled with PTSD. Fair enough, considering he built prisons for his friends and sparked a war between superheroes, but PTSD was just a setup for a string of relapses. In Matt Fraction's Invincible Iron Man, he relapses after fear itself. Tony's traumatized by the cost of his terrible decisions. He turns back to the bottle, not out of weakness, but because he tells himself he earned it. His relapse isn't presented as a step in recovery, it's proof that he can't change. Even when he pours out the drink in the final issue, the message isn't he's moving forward, it's he'll be back here again. And when Stark finally does try to help someone else, editorial just turns that into another humiliation. Carol Danvers credits him as her Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor, the man who helped her rebuild her life. But instead of mutually healing, they use the dynamic to prop Carol up while keeping Tony down. She's the recovered addict, so they can keep him as their go-to drunk. In Christopher Cantwell's Iron Man run, his battle with Korvac shatters Tony's body. He becomes addicted to opioids to survive the pain. Cantwell wrote him like a straight-up junkie, rationalizing, I can control the dosage. My intellect will prevent addiction. This is medical necessity. Compare this to the MCU. Iron Man struggles with PTSD from New York, real consequences, but he doesn't relapse into alcoholism every other film. He grows. He sacrifices himself to save the universe. The movies understood something Marvel Comics forgot. Resilience isn't about never failing. It's about learning from your mistakes and being better. Comic Iron Man never gets that chance. No amount of resources, genius, or effort can redeem someone like him. His external characteristics make him irredeemable. They broke his morality, his technology, his relationships, his mind. Then they took the last step, erased Tony Stark entirely, took his wealth, his legacy, his identity, and handed it all to a 15-year-old girl. Tony Stark represents the embodiment of American innovation. It's what makes him Iron Man. Anyone can wear the armor, but only he can build it. Editorial looked at Stan Lee's creation and said, fuck that noise. After Civil War, they put him through financial collapse on repeat. Fraction's The Five Nightmares, Stark Resilient, Taylor's Superior Iron Man, Bendis' International Iron Man, and Invincible Iron Man runs. Different writers, same story. He loses his money and his company over and over and over. And this is when the publisher decides to go directly off the reservation. Civil War II happens. Stark ends up in a coma, just so they can replace him. Welcome to the show, Riri Williams, a 15-year-old black girl genius from Chicago. Because the only thing holding Iron Man back from becoming a billion-dollar character was diversity. Brian Michael Bendis finally got to fix what was really wrong with the hero, his race and his gender. And Bendis gave zero fucks about making this work organically. Ironheart wasn't meant to evolve Tony's legacy like Rhodey did. She was there to replace it. He didn't even bother giving her a heroic origin. As a kid, Riri throws a fit when her teacher tells her she can be anything, demanding to be told that she can't be Tony Stark just so she can prove them wrong later. That's her entire motivation. Fast forward to MIT, Williams steals University Tech, hacks into Stark's servers to steal his designs, builds her own suit from stolen materials, and bails when campus security shows up. Then the dean shows up to apologize to the Williams family for not stimulating Riri enough. Please, Master Thief, come back to MIT. You can have your own lab on our dime. Editorial created an AI Tony Stark to literally tell fans that Riri is the real deal. It all went over like a wet fart in church. Combine his consciousness, getting digitized as AI, with Gillen's adoption reveal that Tony's entire identity was constructed, and you get to a horrifying question. What's left of Tony Stark that's actually human? And I think that's Marvel's point. None of these writers, Fraction, Taylor, Bendis, Gillen, want us to view him as a real human character, because the greatest sin he ever committed in comics was being representative of rich white men. And here's the insane part. Marvel Studios and Disney bought into this replacement idea hook, line, and sinker, dreaming that an Ironheart TV show could help replace Tony Stark in the MCU. But fans wouldn't bite. The show's launch had all the lift of a goddamn anchor. And now, Disney's stuck trying to force Robert Downey Jr. back into the MCU, desperately hoping fans will accept him as Doctor Doom. It's no coincidence that the MCU's popularity waned right after he died. If Kevin Feige had been paying attention to the Iron Man comics they were producing the entire time, he would have known that was a shit idea. For 20 years, Marvel Comics systematically dismantled Tony Stark because editorially, they were committed to destroying everything he represented, everything they hate. Meanwhile, the MCU proved Tony Stark could be their definitive superhero of the 21st century. Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony wasn't your typical superhero. He was arrogant, reckless, haunted, but he grew. He led the Avengers. He sacrificed everything to save the universe. Comic Tony got broken, rebooted, and broken again. Josh Williamson represents the first real hope fans have had in 2 decades. A writer who actually understands how to rebuild heroes the right way, who might, finally, let Tony Stark finish the arc Miller started back in Civil War. Modern Marvel doesn't deserve Williamson coming over to fix their mess, but Tony Stark needs him now more than ever. Marvel isn't the only publisher who likes to fundamentally break characters for the message. DC's been doing it too. In one hero in particular, they didn't just break her, they fundamentally erased everything compelling about her for Pride Month covers. Learn what DC Comics did to Harley Quinn in this next video. She was DC's first A-list female villain. They broke her. I appreciate the time. And remember to keep thinking critical.